Welcome back into another episode of the Spaceman 2.0 Phoenix Truth Rising Show. Here to help you grow in the knowledge and wisdom of truth, and the truth will set you free. Exposure of the Illuminati's plan of world conquest is the death knell to the New World Order. So we're going to get right back on into Through Darkness into Light, Endless Cycles of the Divine Plan, Volume 1. Continuing on with asteroids and how they have been perceived as well from the Sumerian texts perception. The Enuma Elish has the exact same information as in Genesis, but in an expanded version. So let's get right back on into the Divine Plan, Volume 1. So we already covered this in the last episode, so we're just going to leave off or start off where we basically left off, right down at the bottom. When the asteroid is more like what its name originally implied, minor planet, actual water in liquid form could well be present. Examination of the infrared spectrum of the largest and first to be discovered asteroid, Ceres, which is another one in the astrology charts, shows an extra dip in the spectral readings that is the result of free water rather than water bound to minerals. Since free water, even on Ceres, will quickly evaporate, the astronomers surmise that Ceres must have a constant source of water welling up from its interior. So just a friendly reminder of the host that's guiding us through here is called by Georgius Sears HATONN, a Dharma scribed by a journal scribed by Dharma. Continuing on, the celestial body designated 2060 Chiron, interesting in many ways, also confirms the presence of water in the remnants of the celestial battle. When Charles Cole of the Hale Observatories on Mount Palomar, California, where the photon secret studies are going on, discovered it in November 1977, he was not certain what it was. He simply referred to it as a planetoid, named it temporarily OK for Object Cowl, and opined that it might be a wayward satellite of either Saturn or Uranus. Several weeks of follow-up studies revealed an orbit much more elliptical than that of planets or planetoids, one closer to that of comets. By 1981, the object was determined to be an asteroid, perhaps one of others to be found reaching as far out as Uranus, Neptune, or beyond, and was given the designation 2060 Chiron. However, by 1989, further observations by astronomers at Kitt Peak National Observatory, Arizona, detected an extended atmosphere of carbon dioxide and dust around Chiron, suggesting that it is more comet-like. The latest observations have also established that Chiron is essentially a dirty snowball composed of water, dust, and carbon dioxide ice. If Chiron proves to be more a comet than an asteroid, it will only serve as further evidence that both classes of these remnants of the Genesis event contain water. When a comet is far away from the sun, it appears as a dark and invisible object. As it nears the sun's radiation brings the comet's nucleus to life. It develops a gaseous head, the coma, and then a tail made up of gases, and dust ejected by the nucleus as it heats up, or at least this is the way it appears, and is thus accepted as good data. It is the observation of these assumed emissions that has by and large confirmed views that comets are sometimes dirty snowballs. Spectroscopic analysis of the emissions have shown the presence of the compound water. The presence of water in comets has been definitely established in recent years through enhanced examination of arriving comets. Comet Kohoutek, 1974, was studied not only from Earth but also with rockets from orbiting manned spacecraft, Skylab, but more especially from Soviet craft. Subsequent cometary observations have confirmed these findings to great extent. However, none of these studies, accomplished with a variety of instruments, match the intensity with which Halley's Comet was probed in 1986. The Halley findings established unequivocally, at least for Earth scientists' comfort, that the comet was a watery celestial body. This 1986 comet was met by many unmanned spacecraft. Soviet, Japanese, and the European Space Agency all launched craft. This seemed to give some credence to the speculation that the Star of Bethlehem in the tale of the birth of Christ was indeed the comet. No, it was not. However, the flowing tail of the star at Bethlehem indicated celestial manipulation of some sort. Why these speculations? Intensive observations began when Halley's Comet developed its coma and tail in November 1985. Developed its tail and coma? This is worthy of thought, for would it not always have its coma and tail? Astronomers at the Kitt Peak Observatory tracking the comet with telescopes reported it was certain that the comet's dominant constituent is water, ice, and that much of the tenuous 360,000-mile-wide cloud surrounding it consisted of water vapor. Other claims were that this was the first strong evidence that water ice was prevalent, and other equally ridiculous assumptions. This does not indicate anything of such necessarily, but those telescopic observations were augmented in January 1986 by infrared observations from high-altitude aircraft, whereupon a team made up of NASA scientists and astronomers from several American universities announced direct confirmation that water was a major constituent of Halley's Comet. It was also then when it was discovered that there would be an inescapable passage into a photon belt, accompanied by different waves of radiation and the increased hype upon hype about the so-called ozone depletion. In January 1986, Halley's Comet had developed an immense tail and a halo of hydrogen gas that measured 12.5 million miles across, 15 times bigger than the diameter of the Sun. How could all this prediction of development have been speculated? Does a comet or heavenly cosmic body develop things just because they come within your vision allowance? Why would the loss of water be increased as it neared perihelion on March 6th? It was noted that the comet was losing 12 tons of water per second. The water loss is speculated to increase enormously, first to 30 tons a second, and then on to 70 tons a second. Boy, you were saved from dissolution of the orb itself by an assurance of the scientists to the press that even at this rate, Halley's Comet had enough water ice to last thousands of more orbits. Whew! For a minute I thought the messenger might vanish. I guess this is enough on Halley's Comet, but the point of this was to assure you that, as the Sumerian texts have told you, there was water everywhere on these messengers of Genesis. I would guess that what this actually tells you is that you really don't know very much of anything about out there and what is out there. For instance, let us look briefly at the celestial seeing eyes. When the Anunnaki's mission, Earth, reached its full complete complement, there were 600 of them on Earth, while 300 remained in orbit servicing the shuttlecraft. The Sumerian term for the latter was IGI, literally those who observe and see. Archaeologists have found in Mesopotamia many objects they call eye idols, as well as shrines dedicated to these gods. Texts refer to devices used by the Anunnaki to scan the earth from end to end. These texts and depictions imply the use by the Anunnaki of Earth orbiting celestial seeing eyes satellites that observe and see. How interesting. Would you believe the coincidence is that some of the Earth scanning and especially fixed position communication satellites launched in your own modern times look very much like these millennia-old depictions? So who might be deceiving who as regards historical facts about your origins and early travels? Why has not religion integrated the information? I think we all know that answer. HATONN to clear. Chapter 13, recording number 1, HATONN, Saturday, June 13, 1992, 7:01 a.m., Year 5, Day 302. Meditation. I wonder how many of you realize that the cup and not the cross was the greatest symbol of Christendom. Do you realize it was Peter and not Paul who kept the Master's work and word going? The golden sun disk, ATON, was the symbol of eternal God. The cup was the beloved symbol left by the teacher as reminders to his people. The cup in point is of clay. Mark was asked and did so to bring to the teacher a cup of simple clay for his last sup, this with his people, to remind them of humility and that it is the fruit and not the things of physical silver cups which is in point. The clay cup discovered within the chalice of Antioch found later was not the original used by Yezu. Mark took the cup from where it rested and returned it to his mother, to whom it belonged, as second best table equipment. Silver was the best, and Mark's mother was a wealthy widow, so the act was one of intent, not accident. The intent was to use that which was of earth substance, of which all things are created, The cup itself represents spiritual truth, or truth of faith. Something strange happened to that cup, however. Mark noted that in the dimly lit room where the cups were placed, this one glowed. Therefore, he took it to his room and put it away for safekeeping. He kept it for some 14 years, showing it periodically as ones would gather. The cup became recognized as the chalice of Antioch, but this was not so. The cup was taken to Antioch by Barnabas and Paul, who had by now worked his way within the group of friends. The chalice was made of silver and contained a cup of clay of the same size. Peter carried with him the cup he had used himself at the last gathering. This he gave to Linus, the Greek artist who fashioned a magnificent chalice that held the humble clay cup. The clay cup was replaced by the silver cup of Peter. The point is not very big, but the concept is most important, for I am asked about the places of the lion, and you ones seem to know very little about that which I speak. The stories are all entangled with Linus, Solomon, Rahotep, Akhenaton, and Peter, who are all considered and identified in the underground circles as lions, and the lion throne. The point is that in the worship of things you are going to be most often misled. The chalice of Antioch, for instance, is authentic in that it once held the cup in point, but it no longer holds that cup any more than the Glastonbury chalice holds it. Therefore, ye who would worship and do reverence at the altars of decoration and ritual are very likely worshipping a replica, an idol of some sort, if you will. The things of God are within the heart, and the soul is the cup of God of eternal life, to be refilled upon petition. Ah, indeed, 'tis the cup and not the cross unto which you must turn, that your cup might be filled to overflow. One day, perhaps, we shall find the time to write of these wondrous traditions. This day, however, we shall move on with our story already underway. Today we shall speak of SHAN, Gaia, the cleaved planet, Earth. By any other label, SHAN, Earth. Why do you suppose you call your planet Earth? Ah, so, I thought not. In German, for instance, it is called Erde, from Erda in Old High German, Horda, in Icelandic, Horda in Danish, Eartha in Middle English, Aertha in Gothic, and going eastward geographically and backward in time, Areds or Aratha, in Aramaic, Erd or Ertz, in Kurdish, Aretz, in Hebrew, and so on. The sea you now call the Arabian Sea, the body of water that leads to the Persian Gulf, was called in antiquity the Sea of the Erythea, and to this day, Ordu means an encampment or settlement in Persian. Why? First settlement. Well, a lot happened in that part of the world, and the answer lies in the Sumerian texts that relate the arrival of the first group of Anunnaki Nephilim on Earth. There were 50 of them under the leadership of Ea, whose home is water. A great scientist and the firstborn son of the ruler of Nibiru, Anu, they splashed down in the Arabian Sea and waded ashore to the edge of the marshlands that, after the climate warmed up a bit, became the Persian Gulf. Persia was that which is now recognized as Iran. At the head of the marshlands, they established their first settlement on a new planet. It was called by then ERIDU, home in the fairway. Don't you think that is a nice, appropriate name? Isn't it interesting? They're talking about Iran these days and going into Iran, which was always the plan, and Iraq in 1992, the Sumerian homeland, where they went in there and actually destroyed all the museums and looted them first. So they took all the museum's artifacts first before they did anything with Saddam Hussein. And so it was that in the time the whole settled planet came to be called, after the first settlement, Erda, Eartha, Earth, etc. To this day, when you call your planet by its name, you invoke the memory of the first settlement on Earth. Unknowingly, you remember Eridu and honor the first group of Anunnaki who established it. Is history not getting to be fun? The Sumerian scientific or technical term of Earth's globe and its firm surface was key. It was depicted as a somewhat flattened orb across by vertical lines, somewhat like modern